Hi everyone, Heather here with Astrology with Heather.com, and I am back with another weekly forecast. This one is for Monday, April 8th, all the way through to Sunday, April 14th of 2019. And this week we have sort of a crazy mix of really powerful, very intense, challenging energy with the sun coming into a square with Pluto and Saturn and the South Node, which is highlighting a lot of that really intense energy about purging and letting go and surrendering and restructuring and transforming a certain area of our lives. And it's posing some sort of challenge to that transformation. And so we'll talk about that as we get into the forecast. But luckily, we also have some really powerful, very positive influences that are showing up this week as well. We have the energy of Neptune and Venus coming together in the sign of Pisces, which brings a lot of love and compassion and interconnectedness in all of our interactions and relationships this week. It enhances creativity, it enhances our intuition, it enhances our ability to be empathic and to understand and put ourselves in other people's shoes so we can approach whatever trials, tribulations, challenges, disagreements potentially that come up this week in a way that's more compassionate, that's more considerate of other people. And so that's actually a really beautiful energy that's going to be coming in as well. And then on top of this, so the main thing here is the challenges that are being brought on by Saturn and by Pluto, and they're stationing right now, right? They're slowing down to station at the end of this month. And so Saturn, Pluto, and the South Node will be in a conjunction with all three together for the next almost 2 months. And so this started already. It's been going on for a few weeks now. That Pluto South Node conjunction came exact last week, and we talked about that really in depth. It was a really important energy, and it's still really prominent right now. And Saturn is going to be joining with the South Node while it stations to go retrograde in just a couple of weeks. And we also have this energy right now of Jupiter this week, which is the great benefic in its home sign of Sagittarius, which is stationing to go retrograde. And this is actually stationing in trine with the sun, which is being challenged by Saturn and Pluto. And so what this indicates, first and foremost, is that even though a lot of us are going to be facing some really intense, challenging situations, we're going to be facing the need to restructure, to let go, to surrender control to a certain extent, and to rebuild certain areas of our lives. Jupiter is going to make sure that the end results are positive. And so things might take longer than we might want them to. We might have to purge and let go of more than we planned, or more than what feels comfortable for us. However, Jupiter, the great benefic, is indicating that no matter what it is that we're going through, no matter what the trials, the tribulations, the difficulties are, it's going to be to our benefit in the long run. And there might be that sense of delayed gratification where we have to really put in a lot of hard work this week in order to benefit something for ourselves in the future. So we're setting up a solid foundation for the future, and Jupiter is ensuring that whatever it is that we're setting up for ourselves is going to yield positive results. But again, Saturn brings delays, and so we might not see that straight up. We might not see that right away. However, Jupiter will help us to maintain that sense of perspective, that sense of optimism, so that way we can understand from a different vantage point what's going on here. So even when things get really tough, we can see the bigger picture, like, okay, I have a lot of work to do. There's all these things piling up. I have to let go of this, that, and the other thing. I have to address this problem that's very karmic, that's been, going on for quite some time, so that way I can purge it, transform it, let it go, and restructure that area. And yes, it's scary. Yes, it's a lot of work, but I can see the bigger picture, and I can totally see how this is going to benefit me later on down the line. And, that's really what the energy is about this week. And so when Jupiter stations to go retrograde, this is a very powerful energy of Jupiter. Jupiter is much stronger in the skies, much closer to the earth. And so this is, considered to be a beneficial thing. It is sort of a time when, anytime the planets are stationing, it's sort of this moment in time that's more significant, where time sort of stands still. You get a snapshot of something that you really need to go back and work on while Jupiter's retrograde. And so when Jupiter is doing its forward motion, it indicates a period of expansion outwardly. So, expansion of resources if it's in your second house, expansion of your home, your family dynamic, your property if it's in the fourth house, expansion of, beneficial energy in your relationships if it's in your seventh house. However, when it goes retrograde, it's still a beneficial influence, but it's more of a period of internal growth and internal expansion. So you're expanding on and honing in on your beliefs about these areas of life. So your beliefs about resources if it's in the second house, your beliefs about family, and your deeply held philosophies when it comes to home and family values, your beliefs about relationship, about agreements, about fairness and equality when it's in your seventh house, right, of relationships. And so it does sort of change the energy, and you can still have external growth and external manifestation when Jupiter is transiting that area, but it is going to be more internal focus. So you're growing and expanding on the inside as a precursor to expanding on the right things moving forward when Jupiter goes direct. And so we might have been going through this period of expansion with Jupiter direct in an area of our lives where we're just growing and just pushing and moving and expanding, and or things might have just kind of taken an easier energy. So a lot of times when Jupiter transits an area of our charts, we expect like this whirlwind of growth and expansion because it's so hyped up. But a lot of times what it does is it just makes things flow a lot more easily in that area, so you don't have to work on it, you don't have to think about it as much. And so the benefit of this is that when you have challenges in one area of life, Jupiter lessens the load in another area, so you don't have to focus on it so much, so you can take a break there. So an example of this would be if Jupiter's in your 10th house, you might expect all this career growth and expansion and recognition, and you might get that to a certain extent. But if you're not focusing on that area, if you're not focusing on that expansion because you have challenges in another area of life because of Saturn or Mars transits or something like that, things will take care of themselves, so you won't have to worry about it so much. And so that's one of the manifestations of that Jupiter energy. But when you take hold of the energy of Jupiter, when you intentionally say, okay, Jupiter is transiting right now, my disc is full, my second house of finances, and I want to expand on my resources. So I'm going to think about ways that I can make investments that'll be beneficial to me. I want to think about ways that I can change the way that I do my work, so that way I can create more resources, right? That type of thing. If you're focusing on that, then you can expand very greatly, especially over the course of the next 12 years, because this is, the beginning of a 12-year cycle that's being set in motion there. So this is going to be a period of inward expansion, because maybe you don't fully know what you truly want, need, and desire. You don't know what you believe, what you value, your philosophies or your spiritual leanings when it comes to a certain area of life that you're expanding on, sort of needlessly or haphazardly, or it's just sort of growing and you're like, well, I don't know how I feel about this. I don't know what I believe here. I don't know what my, ideals are in this area or this situation. Maybe you need to, going back to that financial area, maybe you need to reconsider your beliefs about money, resources, what you value in that area, your philosophies about the way that you create resources, or the way that you value your resources or utilize them in some sort of way. Maybe you need to look at whether or not the way that you're creating resources is in alignment with your integrity and what you value, right, before you expand even further. So that's the type of energy with Jupiter going retrograde, which will be happening for a few months here. And so the stationary time period, which happens this week on, let's see here, it happens on Wednesday. It's going to be stationing to go retrograde. That's going to be like a snapshot, a moment in time, where especially if you have a close alignment with Jupiter, which we'll be talking about when we get into the all 12 signs forecast, that's going to be a time when you're going to get this like moment in time, this snapshot of what it is you need to hone in on in terms of your beliefs, in terms of your ideologies, in terms of your philosophies about this area of life. So that way, when you expand more moving forward, it's not going to be, it's going to be in alignment with your integrity. And that's the main sort of keyword, especially with Jupiter and Sagittarius. Sagittarius keyword is integrity. Sag people cannot do anything that's not in alignment with their deeply held moral moral and ethical values, belief systems, philosophies, religious beliefs, all of that. Sagittarius has to act in their integrity to the point where it can be like overkill to some people, right? Where they won't even, well, it just depends on the person, right? I'm not going to generalize Sag, but if you have a lot of Sagittarius, and I know this because my husband has a lot of Sagittarius, he's got a stellium in Sagittarius, his sun and rising are in Sagittarius. He cannot and will not do anything that is not in alignment with his values and belief systems, to the point where, you know, it can be irritating to other people. They're like, why won't you just do this one time? Why won't you just, you know, compromise a little bit here? That's the energy of Sagittarius, right? And especially with Jupiter there, you're expanding on your integrity in this area. So we're going to get into that when we get into the forecast for all 12 signs in just a second. And I did put up the image right there, so you can see a little bit more in a way that's a little bit easier to look at what's going on here with all of the alignments. And so you can see here that we have a really intense square going on here with Saturn, which is going to be in this conjunction with Pluto and with the South Node, and it's going to be in square with the Sun. And so that's a very intense energy. And the Sun actually is going to be, let's see here, with Aries. So this could be a little bit of a disruption in terms of the energy, where you're going to see, and I talked about this a little bit last week, but this is highlighting this even more so. I think what we're going to see more on a global, more expansive scale, it's going to be people revealing themselves, or situations coming about that cause people to reveal their true nature, for better or for worse, and a lot of times for worse, right? And you're going to be seeing your true nature, even like the worst. You're going to see the worst side of yourself, you know, potentially, if you have this in a really close alignment with your sun or with your ascendant or something like that. You'll start to see things that you don't like about yourself that'll be revealed, and you'll have to figure out what to do with that information. You're going to have to figure out how to let go, how to transform that energy, how to become more who you want to be, and how to align yourself with Jupiter in that configuration with your integrity, right? That's part of this. And so I'm going to be focusing on that for the forecast for all 12 signs. There's a lot going on this week, but that's going to be the most predominant energy. And so I want to make sure that we really get into that, because this Jupiter retrograde energy is going to be affecting us for months. You know, and so it's going to be an important time period of self-reflection and inner growth and expansion, a great time for study, a great time for, you know, studying different religious philosophies, belief systems, especially as they relate to the area that we're going to be talking about, right? And utilizing that energy to restructure the area of your life that is being impacted right now by this Saturn energy too. So we'll get into that. And before we do get into that, I just want to, since we're talking about Saturn, I do want to mention that I'm doing a really in-depth webinar called Mastering Saturn. It's going to be live on May 11th, and we're going to be going into the cycles of Saturn. We're going to be going into everybody's personal Saturn placements, aspects to Saturn in the birth chart, so we can look at where your biggest challenges are, where your deepest fears are, where you might have past life issues that you need to work through in this lifetime in order to create a better situation for you moving forward, and how you can utilize the energy of Saturn in a more positive way. We'll also be talking about transits from Saturn and to Saturn in the birth chart, and we'll get into this Pluto-Saturn South Node conjunction, and also Jupiter coming into the mix later on, you know, into the end of this year and into 2020, because it's a big influence. But this is going to be a webinar where the information you can totally use for years and years to come, for your entire lifetime, because at any point in your life, you're somewhere in your Saturn cycle. And so knowing what to do with that is incredibly beneficial in ways that you could never even imagine. So sign up, link is in the description below. And if you are an Aries sun sign or a Taurus sun sign, your solar return forecast is now available through my website. It's 2 hours. The Taurus is actually more than 2 hours long. I went a little overkill there. All about the energy for your personal solar return for the year ahead. And there's a PDF file which gives specific dates and indicators. And so it's very nuanced and very detailed. And so you can find that down in the link in the description below. And if you want to book a reading with me, I always love doing personal readings with all of you. And that link is also down in the description below. All right. And so let's get into the forecast for all 12 signs, the main event here. All right, and so for Aries and for Aries rising, so First off, if you are an Aries, especially an Aries sun sign, happy birthday. This energy this week is going to be an indicator for what's going on for you in the year ahead. And so this is a really important week to pay close attention to this forecast. And, this week, especially if you were born with your sun, around that 20th degree, if you were born anytime this week, you're going to be having your solar return, not only with Saturn and Pluto squaring your sun in the solar return chart, which indicates that this is a year of intense challenge, transformation, where you're going to be undergoing a crisis of identity, where you're completely rebuilding and restructuring who you are and the way that you present yourself out in the world. You're going to be deeply connecting to your purpose, your soul's expression of purpose in the physical reality, and really honing in on what you truly need, want, and desire in all areas of life. So this is going to be a huge restructuring year for you. This is going to be a year of purging and letting go and surrendering so much that is past its expiration date in order to create something new. Luckily, you'll also have that Jupiter transit to the sun, which is going to give you that sense of perspective. Like, I know why I'm doing this. I understand why this is happening. And I know that Jupiter has my back and is supporting me. So all of these challenges, all of this hard work is going to pay off in the long run. And so there could be a sense of delayed gratification here, where you're looking more at the bigger picture and long-term goals and plans. And there's a huge need to let go, so that way you can create space to accommodate for these big, grandiose Jupiter plans, right? And so we got into this really in depth in the Aries solar return sun sign forecast. Again, the link is down in the description below. So if your birthday's this week, it's a powerful week for Aries, especially Aries solar return. So if you're interested, you can find that down in the description below. But for everyone else who has Aries rising or Aries sun sign, this energy is going to be impacting you pretty greatly, especially if you have your rising sign or your sun sign anywhere really from like 18 to 26 degrees, which is what I was talking about last week as well, because this is going to really be impacting you personally. And so you're going to have this Saturn-Pluto South Node energy squaring your sun or squaring your rising sign all month long, but this week it's especially prominent because if you are an Aries rising, the sun is just sitting there right on your ascendant, highlighting your need to be a unique individual, your need to focus your intentions on your own energy, your own self-interest, on the things that you want to create and do out in the world. The spotlight might be on you this week, but maybe in a more challenging way. This might bring up challenges or difficulties with people in positions of power and authority, because this is coming from your 10th house of career and public reputation. It could be that you really want to get recognized, you want to shine in your workplace, and you're not getting the recognition you deserve, or maybe the recognition you're getting is more negative attention, constructive criticism, or something that doesn't feel as good. There could be challenges or difficulties or power struggles that you're dealing with, that we talked about this last week, but it's going to be carried over, and it might be more intense this week, involving your coworkers, involving people in positions of power and authority. If you yourself are in an authoritative position or a leadership role in your work, it could be you overstepping, or you could be challenged by the people who are working for you in a way that causes you to have to step up and to, take the reins and maintain control, or maybe relinquish some control because maybe they're right. Maybe, what you're doing isn't working. So that's just something to consider this week. However, whatever work, and this is also a week where you're going to be working really, really hard to assert some more control, to change something, to restructure something as it relates to your career and public reputation. And also the way that you show up in the world, because this has to do with your identity. This has to do with your ascendant, right? Which is your personality, your persona, the way that you show up. And so you might be restructuring that area. You might be undergoing some sort of crisis of identity, a crisis of figuring out who you are and how to let go of anything that is not in alignment with your truth. So that way you can show up with greater integrity moving forward. So that way you can show up in a way that's very much in alignment with your deeply held values, spiritual, religious belief systems, because Jupiter is stationing to go retrograde in your 9th house. And so this is going to be a time period of some really intense soul searching, where it's going to be very beneficial to you and to anything you want to accomplish or create, and to all of your relationships, because this will be in sextile with your descendant. If you spend some time, especially on Wednesday, and really over the course of the next few months, you're really going to be honing in on this, but Wednesday in particular is a snapshot. If there is something going on where you feel like you're not in alignment with your truth, with your integrity, if you feel like you're compromising your ideals or your ethical values and belief systems to appease other people, to appease people in positions of power and authority, now's a time to really look at that. And you're going to be undergoing a process of really defining what you believe, so that way you can express that outwardly through your character, through the way that you show up and interact with the world. All right, and then for Taurus, oops, that's not the right thing. For Taurus and for Taurus rising, this energy with the sun, this is happening in your 12th house, which is the house of things that are hidden, like hidden enemies, places and institutions that are hidden away from the world. And what's really being challenged here and what's being highlighted are your spiritual beliefs, your philosophies, your values about God, the universe, the world around you. You're restructuring that area, which we talked about quite a bit last week. There's a need to purge something in terms of maybe more authoritarian belief systems, or belief systems that are not in alignment with what you truly value or what you truly feel is right on the inside, but you've been adhering to maybe dogmatically. And this is really going to pose a challenge to your internal sense of well-being this week. What's really being highlighted is the need to turn inward, and that's really all month long, because you have the sun in your 12th house, which is highlighting your dreams, which is highlighting your intuition, which is highlighting the need for rest and reprieve, which is highlighting the need for spiritual exploration. And so, you might feel internally restless because there is a need to restructure. There is a disconnect from from God, right? From the source energy, or whatever it is that you want to, personify that as. There's a disconnect going on, and there's a need to take time in solitude and seclusion so you can reconnect to that energy. And what's really happening here is that Jupiter is also stationing to go retrograde. And so Jupiter stationing in your 8th house is going to highlight any issues that are going on involving debt, joint finances, inheritance, taxes, other people's money, insurance, all of these types of issues that you've been expanding on, and maybe that have been becoming a little bit easier for you over the last few months. There's going to be this snapshot, this moment in time where you might have to take a look at your beliefs about joint finances, other people's money, debt, death. That's another thing too. Your beliefs about death, your beliefs about what happens after death, life after death, if that's something that you adhere to, reincarnation, all of that. That's something that might be coming up for you this week, and something that you might be focusing on rethinking or learning more about over the course of the next few months. And so, this is a really powerful energy that's coming up for you, where you might be looking at doing some soul searching and looking at what you believe on a deep sort of core level. This is also an energy of going back and reflecting on past wounds, traumas, insecurities, anxieties, and pulling those up to the surface in a way that's very easy for you to work through and heal through with Jupiter in the mix. So this is going to be a powerful and profound time of healing. But a lot of this is going to be involving your beliefs about death, birth, rebirth, power and control issues, looking at whether or not you are exercising your integrity when it comes to finances or joint finances, taxes, maybe looking at whether or not you even believe that paying taxes is ethical or something along those lines. These are going to be questions that will be coming up for you, and it's going to be part of the process of soul searching and figuring out what you truly believe on a deep core level, what your religious beliefs are, what your philosophies on life are. That's going to be part of this process as well. There's a bug in here. Okay, so that's Taurus and Taurus rising. And by the way, you guys, if you didn't listen before, the sun sign forecast for Taurus solar return is available down in the link in the description below. So if you want to get more in depth about what's going to be going on for you this year, I would definitely check that out. All right, and for Gemini and for Gemini rising, this energy here of this this square to the sun with Pluto and Saturn is happening in your 11th house, which is the house of friends, social networks, groups that you surround yourself with by choice. And so there could be, this area is being highlighted. You might be feeling more like you want to go out, you want to focus on your friends and on your social networks. You want to get out there and go to parties and, do some sort of networking event or something along those lines. But there could be some challenges. There could be power and control issues and power struggles that come up this week involving groups, especially leadership positions within groups. And so if you are in a leadership position within some sort of group or organization, you could be challenged. Somebody could challenge your power and your authority, or you might have to exercise more power and authority or relinquish some sort of authority over a group. This could bring power and control issues and power struggles with groups of people involving money, finances, especially if you're a part of a charitable organization. This could bring power and control issues involving friends and social networks in general, where there could be disputes or difficulties in that area. This is also Jupiter trining the sun in that area, though. So whatever it is that you're going through, so you might be thinking about leaving a certain group, letting go of certain friendships, and purging and restructuring this area of your life. And, what this is really going to bring for you is better and more significant close one-on-one friendships, because this is Jupiter in the 7th house expanding on one-on-one relationships. And this is really what the big picture is all about here. So it's looking at relinquishing this energy of having these, big groups of friends and lots of acquaintances, and letting go of friendships and acquaintances and difficulties in that area where, maybe it's not in alignment with what you truly value. And making space, making space for yourself to create deeper, more expansive friendships on a one-on-one level, or to create better relationships overall by relinquishing the relationships that are maybe exercising too much power and control over you, or that are hindering your own ability to control your life. Maybe you're caring too much about what other people think about what you're doing, and you need to let go of that, so that way you can feel more in control, more empowered to make decisions for yourself. And this is going to open up space for you to have some deeper, more intimate one-on-one connections with friends and with groups of people, and with, just relationships in general, that are going to be more expansive, that are going to be much more fun, that are going to help you to broaden your horizons, to expand your mindset, to learn new things, and to experience new things in life. Jupiter in the 7th house indicates that all relationships right now are going to be more beneficial for you. And with Jupiter stationing, you're going to be really looking at defining what you truly value in relationship. You're going to look at defining your beliefs about relationships, especially marriage and committed partnerships, romantic partnerships, but also your beliefs about, friendships and business partnerships and all close one-on-one relationships. And so if you are involved in some sort of commitment or contract or business partnership that's not in alignment with your values, your ethical and moral beliefs, your integrity, this is going to be a time when you're going to be really honing in on that and figuring out what you believe and what you want in that area. All right, and for Cancer rising. There we go. For Cancer rising, this energy is happening with this square. So you have Saturn and Pluto stationing in your 7th house, which we talked about pretty in depth last week. If you missed that, go back and watch it. But you're going through this process of purging, restructuring, letting go of certain energies in the area of your life involving relationships, committed partnerships, contracts, and agreements. And so this is an area where there's going to be some challenge. And this week in particular, business or work-related relationships are coming under scrutiny. And so there could be issues with power and control and feeling very limited and oppressed as it relates to your role as a leader or in a leadership position in your work. You could have power struggles and complications and difficulties and restrictions that come to you through people in positions of power and authority in your work, bosses, higher ups, authority figures, where you're going to have to work through these issues, where you're going to have to restructure your commitment in your relationship. This could be you letting go of important business partnerships or contracts involving business this week, or or letting go of certain aspects of these relationships and contracts and restructuring them so that way they serve you more appropriately moving forward. Anything that you do this week, though, that's in alignment with your integrity, with what you truly want and what you truly value when it comes to your work, that's something that's going to be expanded on. And so letting go and purging any contracts, any agreements, any relationships and connections through your work that are more burden than they're worth, that are that feel very controlling, very oppressive, that's really going to help you to step into more of a leadership role, to shine more in your work, to get recognition. And you could get recognition this week with Jupiter, especially at the end of this week with Jupiter trining your sun. And so Jupiter is stationing in your 6th house, which has to do with health, daily routines, work, service. And so these are all areas where you're going to be looking at your deeply held values and beliefs around these topics, and whether or not you're exercising your ethical and moral values, whether or not you're in alignment with your integrity here. So if you're doing something with your work on a day-to-day basis where you're compromising your integrity, where you're not doing something that's in alignment with your ethics and your values and your belief systems, now is a time over these next few months when you're really going to benefit from doing some soul searching and realigning yourself with something that's more that's more appropriate for you and for what you hold dear. This is also where you're going to be looking at your beliefs about service and the way that you serve others. This is where you're going to be looking at your deeply held beliefs about nutrition, diet, exercise, whether or not those beliefs are appropriate, whether or not you're actually acting in integrity. Maybe you believe that, there's a certain type of healthy diet that is best for everyone, or that is best for you. Maybe, you realize that you're not actually lining yourself up with those beliefs. You're saying one thing and then you're eating a different way, right? And so looking at things like that, that can be very important and very helpful for you in terms of your overall health and well-being over the next couple of months. All right, and then for Leo and for Leo rising, where are you? Oh, there you are. For Leo and for Leo rising, this energy of this square to the sun, this is happening in your 8th house, Virgo, Leo and Leo rising. This energy is happening in your 9th house, of beliefs, of foreign travel, of exploring and expanding your horizons through experience, right? Experiential learning. This is all about your integrity, all about your beliefs about God, the universe, the world around you, your deeply held philosophies. This could also be something posing a challenge to your ability to do the work that you want to do to travel and to I'm a little mixed up here. This could be a challenge coming from your work, from your daily routines, that's preventing you from doing something that you really want to do when it comes to travel, when it comes to higher educational pursuits, where maybe there's going to be a power struggle or a difficulty or an issue when it comes to your day-to-day work routines or your work schedule that you're going to have to work through. Maybe you have to purge your work in general in order to make space for you to pursue some sort of higher educational pursuit, to pursue the travel plans and the experience that you want to connect with, moving forward. This is also a time where Jupiter is actually stationing and trine with the sun in your 9th house. So whatever it is that you're doing and restructuring in this area in order to create space is going to be beneficial for you, very much so moving forward. Jupiter is stationing to go retrograde in your 5th house. And so this indicates that you're going to be looking at some of your deeply held beliefs as it relates to children or the way that you raise children. This could be you having to take a good hard look at whether or not you're raising your children with integrity. If you're believing one thing, like maybe you believe that children should not use electronics, but you've kind of, let that fall by the wayside and they have all these devices all the time and you're like, how did this happen? I'm not in alignment with my integrity in the way that I'm raising my kids. That could be something that you really have to look at, and that will be very beneficial for you to look at so you can expand on your relationship with your children in a more positive and more authentic way moving forward. This is also a time where you could be expanding on some sort of really exciting, adventurous new plans. This is a time where you could be looking at your ideals and your beliefs about romance, about love, about creativity, about pleasure and joy, and whether or not you're acting on those beliefs with integrity. And this is also a time where, especially at the end of this week, whatever it is that you're doing, in terms of restructuring, in terms of your work, your daily routines, your health habits, to create space for yourself to have more adventures, to learn new things, to explore new philosophies, to expand your horizons. It's going to very much be beneficial for you in the long run. All right, and then for Virgo and for Virgo rising. This energy with the sun in square with Saturn and Pluto is happening in your 5th house. And we talked a little bit about this last week, right? So you have this energy happening in your 5th house, which can bring power struggles, control issues, difficulties involving romance, especially love affairs and romantic partnerships like boyfriend-girlfriend relationships, less serious relationships. This could be a restructuring of the energy around your children or your relationship with your children. There could be difficulties and complications and power struggles there. This could just be you feeling very limited, oppressed, controlled, restricted in your ability to experience joy. And, looking at issues involving power and control with finances, that's really going to be highlighted this week. Looking at power and control issues involving other people's money, debt, inheritance, taxes, things like insurance, things like also looking at things like deeply held fears, anxieties, that type of thing, pulling it up to the surface because it's going to be highlighted this week, and that's going to actually help you to loosen up and to have a little bit more fun moving forward. Jupiter is actually stationing to go retrograde in your 4th house of the home and family, and so that's an area where maybe you've been expanding. Maybe you've invited new family members in, maybe you've gotten new pets, maybe you've remodeled or expanded on your home, or maybe things have just been going a lot more easily for you in that area. This week, you're going to be having to take a good hard look at your deeply held values, your beliefs, your philosophies, your religious beliefs even around family and your family structure and what that really means to you. So that way you can start to align yourself with your integrity when it comes to the way that you deal with your family, when it comes to the way that you deal with your home and property. And that way moving forward, when you expand again and you start to, grow in that area, it's going to be more beneficial to you because it's going to be very much in alignment with your truth, right? With your integrity and with your beliefs. So it's going to be much more satisfying. This is also going to help you with the sun being in the 8th house and Jupiter being in the 4th house. This is you going through a period of emotional growth, of deep, really internal, intense healing, right? Healing from the inside out, deep shamanic healing, where it's like you're pulling out all the darkness and all the stuff, but you're looking at it in a way with Jupiter involved with the sun, where it's not as scary as you thought it was, where you don't have a lot of fears and anxieties around it anymore, where you can very easily pull it up to the surface, look at it and release it and let go, or turn it into something much more beneficial, much more empowering for you moving forward. So it might be a little bit of soul searching going on here, but in general this is a very beneficial week to take stock of your home and your family dynamic and what you truly desire and want in that area, and what your beliefs are there. All right, so for Libra and for Libra rising, this energy of the sun square to Saturn and Pluto, this is happening in your 7th and 4th house. And so this could bring up even more conflicts like we talked about last week, involving home, family, property, family structure, involving contracts and commitments, involving family members or involving your home or your property. That it's all going to be highlighted this week, and you might have to deal with some difficulties in that area, some challenges, especially challenges from people in power, in positions of power and authority, that maybe are challenging your role in the family unit, that are maybe challenging you in terms of exercising power and control over your home and property. Maybe you have landlord issues or something like that come up this week. But whatever it is, you're going to be able to work through it a lot more easily, and the end results are going to be much more to your benefit because you have Jupiter trining the sun. Especially at the end of this week, you'll start to see the light at the end of the tunnel if you are experiencing challenges, especially if you're experiencing challenges in relationships, especially close personal relationships, romantic relationships, that type of thing. You're going to be able to have much more beautiful, open, honest, expansive communication in your relationships coming into the end of this week, which can help to alleviate some of those challenges. Jupiter stationing to go retrograde in your 3rd house, which is the house of which is the house of the mind, which is the house of your intelligence, which is the house of your day-to-day sort of communications. That's where Jupiter's going to be stationing, right? So Jupiter stationing there is going to have you looking at a lot of your beliefs, but also a lot of your self-talk and a lot of the way. So that's one of the things that I've noticed with the third house energy is that you look at the way that you think and the way that you speak on a day-to-day basis and the way that it impacts your reality. And so are your day-to-day beliefs and thoughts and communications, are the things that you're saying in alignment with what you truly value and believe on sort of a deeper, more philosophical level? Are your words in alignment with your integrity? Are you speaking truthfully when you do speak? And are you speaking up when you need to speak up, right? That's something that's important as well. Are you speaking for your truth? Are you speaking up in support of your philosophies, your moral and ethical value systems, your beliefs? This is also a time where you might be spending some time in introspection. You might be over the next few months learning and studying different types of philosophies, different value systems, and learning how to integrate those on a day-to-day basis. This would be a good time to look at, things like, what was that one book, like Psycho-Cybernetics, or one of those self-help books where it looks at the way that your mind and the way that you think about things really influences and impacts your reality, and making sure that you are thinking in a way that is in alignment with what you want, bigger picture, and what your beliefs are. And so this is a great time for introspective work. This is a great time for studying and for growing and expanding your mind in particular, and a really great time for open and honest communication and relationships to help alleviate some of the challenges going on there, especially in family relationships. All right, for Scorpio and for Scorpio rising. All right, so this Sun square to Saturn and Pluto is happening in your 3rd and 6th house. And so this could be kind of a challenging week when it comes to work-related relationships, or when it comes to your health and your daily routines. You've been going through this process of limitation, restriction, restructuring when it comes to your community, when it comes to your mindset, especially when it comes to things like short distance travel, your relationship with your siblings, extended family members, cousins, that type of thing. Your communication might feel more intense and more restrictive at this time. This could bring power and control issues, power struggles, burdens, oppressive energy that comes through your work, and it prevents you from moving forward as quickly as you would want to when it comes to your daily habits, your daily routines. And so the Sun being in the sign of Aries, we just had a new moon there being squared by Saturn and Pluto. It's kind of like you want to move forward with something when it comes to your day-to-day work routines. You want to move forward with something when it comes to different projects. You want to move forward with something when it comes to establishing better daily health rituals and routines. But there's something blocking you there, and usually what's blocking you has more to do with your mindset, or feeling very burdened and oppressed by day-to-day busyness and day-to-day communications that are a little bit more intense and require a lot more attention and time than they normally would. And so there is going to be a little bit of a struggle there, but by restructuring your beliefs, by restructuring your thought processes around things, it's really going to help you to open up to create a better situation for yourself when it comes to your day-to-day habits, your day-to-day work experience, your relationships with your coworkers, because there could be power struggles and restrictions and difficulties there. With Jupiter coming into a really nice trine with the Sun in the 6th house, this restructuring that you're going through when it comes to your communication style, when it comes to maybe your marketing plan for your business or something along those lines, the restructuring that you're going through there is actually going to be very beneficial for you in the long run when it comes to your finances, right? And so this is also a time with Jupiter stationing to go retrograde where maybe, you've been expanding on your resources, you've been, creating a savings account, or more money's been coming in, or things have just been easier in that area where maybe there's not a financial windfall, which is what people always want with Jupiter in the 2nd house, but, things have been taking care of themselves. You've had the money that you need for everything that has come up for you, and so you haven't had to worry as much in that area. Now, before we move forward with more expansion in that area, not to say that you won't be taken care of there, because Jupiter still takes care of you, but before we can move into more expansion in that area, and maybe more of a deliberate, intentional use of that energy to expand on your resources, it's time to take stock and to look at what you value truly when it comes to material possessions. What is more meaningful to you, right? Is money really the most important thing? What do you believe about money? What do you believe money is? What kind of energy does it hold? How do you want to use your resources? Are you utilizing your resources with integrity? Are you supporting companies that are in alignment with your moral and value systems, your belief systems, which usually with Sag in your second house you are? But taking better stock of that, right? And being maybe more careful about where you're putting your money and where you're putting your resources. That's something that you can really think about and look at, and what you really value when it comes to material possessions. Do you want like the big gaudy house, or do you want something that is just more stable and that allows you the freedom to travel or whatever, right? So looking at those types of things can be important. And that's going to help you to, and are you creating resources with integrity? That's a big one too. So if you're not in alignment with your integrity in the way that you're creating money for yourself, this is going to really make that apparent for you. Not in a harsh way, but in a gentle way. So that way moving forward, you can align yourself with maybe a better job, right? That you can feel good about and you feel like you're supporting something positive. All right, and then for Sagittarius and Sagittarius rising, this energy with Saturn and Pluto squaring your sun, this is bringing a little bit of a difficulty here between, first off, there's an energy of really having to purge, restructure, let go of certain ways of creating resources for yourself and establish new structures and new foundations when it comes to material possessions moving forward. And so it could be that money's limited or restricted because of a very important project, because you're saving for something, or maybe, it's through your job or your work, maybe your money's been restricted in some sort of way, and you're going to be feeling it in terms of fifth house energy this week. So you might really want to do something fun and creative and romantic, and you might want to enjoy the things that you love to do. Maybe you want to move into a career path that's more in alignment with your hobbies, your interests, the things you do for fun because you love to do them. And there's a little bit of a blockage here. We talked about this last week with the new moon. But this is really coming to a head this week. And so, there's a need to restructure the way that you deal with resources. You might have power and control issues going on involving resources or involving people holding resources over your head. And it might be preventing you from really enjoying yourself. So this is a week where you're going to be restructuring. And with Jupiter stationing to go retrograde in your sign, whatever you're doing here, whatever you're creating for a foundation, whatever you're purging and letting go of, or at least starting the process of purging and letting go of, it's really going to support you moving forward in aligning yourself and your actions on all levels with your integrity, which I know is important for Sagittarius, aligning your work with your integrity, and also creating space for yourself so that way you can enjoy life again, so you can experience joy, so you can go out and have a really fun date, or you can spend more time enjoying playing with your children and just, engaging in that childlike energy. This is going to be a time with Jupiter stationed to go retrograde where you're really going to be doing some soul searching, especially if you have your sun, moon rising at the end degrees of Sagittarius, really anywhere from let's say 16 to 24 degrees, but especially around that 20th degree, you're going to be feeling this really intensely. And so this is actually a very beneficial influence for you. So this is kind of overpowering some of the more difficult influences because Jupiter stationing, Jupiter is really strong in the sky. So there's a snapshot going on right now. There's this moment in time where it's like time is going to stand still for you because this is the ruler of your chart. And whatever's going on this week, especially, Monday through Friday, because Wednesday is sort of that midpoint there, anything that's going on for you is going to be extra significant, and you need to pay very close attention to, especially if it relates to you aligning yourself with your moral and ethical values and belief systems. So if you have a moment where you have to stand up for yourself, you have to fight for your beliefs, if you have a moment where somebody asks you about a very important philosophical question, you don't have answers for it, or you realize that you believe one thing and you're acting in another way, or that your relationships are with people who are not in line with your integrity, which would be something that would be very important for you. These types of things might be coming up. But also, this could be a week where you get to spend more time having fun, playing, because you're working on restructuring your life in that way. So this is a good week to go out, to play, to have fun, to enjoy yourself, but to also put in the work, right? Make sure that you're not neglecting the work. Make sure that you're not just letting your financial situation fall by the wayside and just, doing something extravagant. All right, for Capricorn and Capricorn rising. For Capricorn and Capricorn rising, this Saturn-Pluto conjunction is happening in your first house. It's in your sign, and so this is in square with the sun, and so this is bringing again more challenges involving family dynamics, involving your place of living, involving your family structure. But you're going to be getting some benefits this week because you have Jupiter stationing to go retrograde in your 12th house. The 12th house is the house of deep spiritual exploration. It's the house of past lives. You might have some past life connections that come in this week that help to alleviate some issues involving your home, your family, your property. This is a really great week for introspection. This is a really great week for really going deep into your spiritual practices and aligning the way that you practice your spirituality with your integrity and with your deeply held values and belief systems. This could also be some sort of hidden source of inspiration, some sort of hidden source of benefits and good fortune and good energy that comes through for you, and that helps to alleviate some of the stress and challenge and burden going on in your 4th house, which is the house of family, which is the house of property in your home. And so this is, a really great energy there. And this is a time where you really have to take a look at whether or not what's going on behind the scenes, behind closed doors, your spiritual practices, your mindset, your beliefs about things, if it's really in alignment with your integrity. And so, this could be a week that feels challenging for you because that sun square to Saturn and Pluto, especially if you have your sun, moon rising at those end degrees, really 18 to 25 degrees, I would say. In the sign of Capricorn, you might feel more challenged this week, and that's going to be highlighted, and you might feel challenged to really align. So there could be something that's really burdening you or weighing on you. There could be some sort of outside source of power or control that's preventing you and oppressing you and preventing you from really connecting with what you want when it comes to your home and family. But spending time in meditation, spending time in contemplation is going to allow you to open up to intuitive insights that can really alleviate these problems. So I would say don't think about things logically, use your intuition, use your creativity, and pay attention to your dreams or to the signs, synchronicities, impressions that you get, because that's really going to lead you in a better direction. All right, and then Aquarius and Aquarius rising. So for you guys, there you are. So you have this square happening in your 12th and in your 3rd house. The 3rd house is the house of communication. It's the house of your day-to-day thought processes. It's the house that involves short distance travel, vehicles, cousins, family members, or extended family members, neighbors, all of that. And so you could have some challenges or power struggles going on in that area this week. That's still being highlighted, similar to last week. So listen to that if you haven't already. But the energy here with Jupiter is stationing to go retrograde in your 11th house. And so this is a great week for communication with friends, with social networks, with groups of people who you surround yourself with by choice. This is a time where your networks and connections can prove to be extra beneficial for you, and that can help to give you a better sense of perspective if you're going through some challenges, or if your mindset has been more pessimistic, or if you've been having some really challenging, difficult communications or power struggles involving communication or extended family members, or power struggles with people in your neighborhood or your community. Reaching out to friends, reaching out to your networks can be very beneficial for you. This is also going to be a time period where Jupiter stationing to go retrograde is going to show you over the course of the next few months whether or not your relationships are in alignment with your integrity, or whether or not you're acting in your integrity in your important relationships, especially with groups of people. Maybe you're a part of an organization that you thought was doing a really good job and you thought they were doing really great work, and you're realizing this week, or maybe a little later on down the line, but this week is that snapshot, right? Pay attention to things like that this week. And so maybe you realize this week that this group is not exactly what you thought it was. It's not exactly in alignment in the way that you had hoped. And, maybe you need to rethink that, or rethink your relationship with these people. Or, this could just be a time of soul searching where you're really looking at whether or not your relationships and your connections are in alignment with your integrity. Are you positioning yourself with the right people? You've probably been having a little bit of growth and expansion, or at least a little bit more ease when it comes to dealing with groups of people, when it comes to making friends and maintaining friendships. And so maybe you've got some new friends, right? And so it's time to kind of take a look at whether or not these friends are right for you over the course of the next few months. Do they have similar beliefs to you? Or are their beliefs really conflicting with your integrity? That type of thing. All right. And then for Pisces and for Pisces rising. There it is. Okay, so for Pisces and Pisces rising, this energy is happening in your second house of finance and your 11th house of groups, friendships, social networks, groups of people. And so we talked about this last week a little bit with the new moon and with Pluto coming into a conjunction with the south node. But there is some sort of challenge going on here. So there could be some sort of really oppressive energy coming through some sort of social network, groups of people, people that you surround yourself with by choice, even through social media, that is really hindering your ability to. Maybe it's just that you care too much about what your friends think about what you're doing to create resources. And so, that's an area where you've been working on restructuring, or you've been working on sort of letting go and purging certain connections with people that are just not good for you moving forward, that feel more burden than they're worth. And then you're also going to be having this really nice energy coming in this week, though. So this is a week where you can get some sort of recognition financially through your work, where, people in positions of power and authority might actually help you out financially in some sort of way, or where, you might get some sort of bonus or some sort of recognition where you can really connect in a positive way to your bosses, your superiors, or if you are in a position of power and authority, you can connect more appropriately in a more beneficial way to the people that work for you. And any plans and goals, any restructuring you're doing when it comes to your networks, especially networking for business, that's really going to, and especially purging old networks that are not working for you, that's really going to help you out financially, and it's going to benefit you more so in the long run. If that's something that you're working on or thinking about doing. Jupiter stationing to go retrograde is actually going to bring up, issues around your integrity and whether or not you're acting in your integrity when it comes to your job, your career path, right? Is your career right for you? Is it in alignment with your ethical, moral values and belief systems? Or are you having to compromise your ideals in order to just earn a living? And so that's something that you'll be able to see very easily this week, and you'll see that the restructuring that you're doing is going to be benefiting you in terms of, moving forward with career plans and goals that are more in alignment with your integrity moving forward. And if you are a Pisces rising, I didn't talk about this much for anyone else, but because this is happening in your sign, if you're a Pisces rising or a Pisces sun sign near 17 degrees in the sign of Pisces, this is going to be a very wonderful, harmonious sort of week for you, where you're going to feel very dreamy. You're going to feel much more like things are very magical. You're going to have very connected, compassionate, beautiful connections and relationships coming in this week. You can feel much more beautiful. You can feel much more appealing. People are going to be much more drawn to you, and you're going to have more of like a compassionate energy. So that's going to draw people in as well. But this is a week where your creativity is enhanced pretty dramatically, and it's a good week for visualization, for meditation, for spiritual practices of all kinds, and especially for creative pursuits of all kinds. And so it's a good week for that for Pisces. Pisces overall has a lot of good energy this week, even if you have some power struggles and some challenges going on with groups and things like that. You have great energy for career growth. You have great energy for resolving any financial difficulties that you've been coming into, and you have a great energy overall for just feeling good. So that's a good thing, right? All right. And so that was my forecast for all 12 signs. And let's see, how do I get this back up here? Here we go. Oh. So thank you all so much for watching this video. And if you like what you see here, please subscribe to my channel. And you can also find me on Facebook. I started doing Instagram, but I'm not great at it. So you can find me there too if you want. And as always, if you want to book a reading with me, you can do so at the link in the description below. I will see you guys all next week. Thank you so much. Bye.